Welcome to HuttCast. Today in session, Dennis Fisher, the mayor of Dayton. He is up for re-election, and he's going to tell you what he thinks is going on in town and give you his views on it. So stand by for Dennis Fisher. Welcome to HuttCast. Today, Dennis is in studio. Hi, Dennis. How you doing?
Good.
So let's talk about everybody. I invite everybody to this soiree, and your opponent did not reach out. And there was another council guy running who did not reach out. That leaves the rest of them and you. So you can get your message here and clear. Starting out with the same stuff we used last time and the campaign for the candidates. Fire trucks. Tell me what's your point on fire trucks. As a member, I get it. We don't have nothing over 45, 50 feet. They want a shiny new big red thing, and I get that too. Go.
Well, specifically fire trucks, we did have a study done a couple years back, and that study at the time, they were well aware of what houses we were trying to build or types of houses we were building. They were aware of some of the warehouses going in, and so they had recommended that we would not need a ladder truck for a long time. I mean, they were primarily focused I think 5 or 10 years out, but the study was actually based on a 20-year long-term. But we all know that a 20-year plan is kind of worthless. So, but it said we would not need that ladder truck. Now, if we change up our routine a little bit and end up with, say, outskirts of the city here, if we end up with a 4 or possibly even a 5-story apartment building, then maybe we're going to start looking that way. It's all kind of centered around whether we end up with this station or not, this new station, or actually, I shouldn't say or not. It's a matter of when that station goes in, because I think everybody's in kind of agreement. We'll need a south side station at some point, and at that time, we'll need an engine to put in it. And then this question's going to, rear its head once again.
Sure. And that is our number 2 question for the day. Fire stations. You kind of touched on it there. With the service calls we have, most of them are medicals. And a lot of the people that were taking this little opinion poll said that they were kind of in favor of a medical station, pseudo, where they can launch ambulances from, versus a fire station. What you thinking?
Well, those numbers are very clear. The service calls, roughly 5% are for fires, and the vast majority of fires, people are out. People are out of the house.
Okay.
You still don't want your house burning down, but we're talking about 5% of the calls. 50 roughly are for medical. Those are where that turn time, staff showing up quickly is important. Some sort of medical facility. We have right now, staff doesn't seem to want to look at that. They're kind of wedded to the idea of an all or nothing. And unfortunately, what that means is, according to the fire chief, that's going to be anywhere from $15 to $20 million. And so if we end up doing that, on our current tax base, It's going to hit people hard. It's going to be about $700 per median house.
$700 a year on taxes?
Yes.
Okay.
Whereas if we wait, if we wait for the full station, like I said, there's no doubt that we will need a full station in the end. That study showed that. I think if you look at the city, you'll see that. In the end, we need a station in the south, we need one in the north. It's going to significantly impact taxes. So if we wait until the bulk of our commercial comes in and a lot of the TIF comes off, we're going to have that money available so that it doesn't hit the property taxes.
You mean the non-commercial?
The non-commercial.
So residents.
Yeah, residents.
Okay.
And that's roughly 6 years out. And like I said, if we do it in the next 1 or 2 years, it's going to hammer taxes. All the the recovery we've done on taxes, the fact that we brought them back down to 2017 levels is going to be right back up. It's like I said, it's almost $700 per median house.
I see. Let me ask a question. Champlin has what, 15, 18,000 people? We have 9,000? Why 3 firehouses?
Primarily it's because they were originally put in the wrong spot. A lot of discussion back then in the mid 70s and when those 2 stations went in. Why they decided to put Station 1 downtown is beyond me, because I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know. It should have went somewhere up on Brockton and or maybe the River Road up farther. But it doesn't matter where we're at, and we have a station downtown, and we have a station, in the north east part of the city.
By City Hall.
Yep. And then when development started, a lot of the development started down in the Sundance area in the southwest side, and that's about as far away from that's on the outer edge of that part of the city, and so that's where we're at.
Sure. And I get that. I mean, in the trifecta, you're in the center. You didn't pick it that right then, but now we got to do it because our building grew.
Right, and it's not going to be an easy path to straighten out either, because we're going to have to put that 3rd station in at some point. We really can't remove either of the other 2 at that point until we put in another north station somewhere on, say, North Diamond Lake or somewhere in that area.
Okay.
Now, reality is that probably won't go in for 20 or give or take years. Well, I guess it depends on who gets in council. So,
well, that's going to roll us into the next 3 and 4 questions here, because we got, if you're done, we got roads and growth coming up. So, on that, location's key. I mean, so back to the thought of get in with some of the ambulance companies, the hospitals, and see if they can do an Alina or a whatever out of wherever, right?
Yes. So, like I said, the medical turn time is important, because if you're sitting there with some sort of distress, you don't want to hang around too much, or you'll just you'll simply drive yourself or
sure.
So I want to see us do something along those lines, and if staff comes to us and says, hey, instead of this $20 million building, how about we do a $2 million building that we can expand later on?
I have someone help pay for.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. We want to staff it. I have no problem with that. The problem is that's not what, that is repeatedly the question that we ask, and we are repeatedly told, no, we want the full-blown station. Well, we can't do that. At least this council won't do that.
So fiscally speaking, financially responsibly speaking,
yeah,
a medical makes more sense for now until we get the big infrastructure going on the commercial?
Yeah. Well, here's what it boils down to. So this city took a big debt load on in the mid 2000s, $28 million. It was the plan was we'd have all kinds of new housing. I mean, they had a plan to build out by about 2030, 2035.
Okay.
And they were going to pay that down. Well, 2 years later, the market crashed. Right now, we barely got through that. This city had to lay off a bunch of people. They had a bunch of cuts, and we still had taxes through the roof, which, like I said, hasn't been corrected up until we got in here. Okay. And now we're down to, I say down, even though we're still in debt up to maybe not our eyeballs now, but it's our shoulders.
Nostrils, right?
Right now, this city owes $16 million in debt today, and that debt is being paid off by new houses. So that's $2 million a year, roughly, what we have left. And if the market turns down, and let's say worst case, we lose all the houses. that $2 million is going to land on a levy of $6 million. So you're instantly going to see a 30% increase in the levy, or we're going to have to cut, slash and burn. So right now we have a significant debt. And if we were to take on a $15 or a $20 million debt with a new fire station, there's, to me, that's just
fiscally irresponsible.
Incredibly irresponsible. Yeah. And right now we've got candidates pushing for this, and I don't know if they don't realize how much debt we currently carry.
Mm-hmm. Is your opponent is pushing on this? What's her official stance? Has she said?
She has not said.
Okay.
I have my suspicion. But I don't know. She has not said. So.
I understand. And with a guy on the council who is a registered firefighter for the city, I can only imagine he's pushing forward as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I think once the dollar amount came out, everything kind of went quiet.
Well, I can certainly see another area. We have mutual aid. We have buildings that are capped at 45, 50 feet, even in our industrial area. If, as an EDA chair, was to say, let's put these in 5 and 8 and 10 stories, that would certainly make sense to do a big ladder truck, because we're taking care of our own. But we're not there yet.
Right. Yeah, and like I say, a ladder truck, wasn't recommended by the study. I know the chief wants one, and his reasons were, if we put in a taller apartment building. He also listed the type of houses and the warehouses. Well, the study authors were aware of those at the time. And I know that staff is concerned that the study didn't have the correct inputs, i.e., population and call volume. But when you go back and look at the population, the deviation between what they assumed and what we had is, I believe, when I worked the numbers, it was 4%. So, sorry, that's kind of not a very excuse for kind of ignoring. I wouldn't say ignoring the study, but at least looking at it and coming up with reasons why it may be flawed.
So, crazy question: how much that study cost us?
I believe it was $50,000. You can't get a study done. It seems like all of our studies cost 25, 30, 40, 50 grand. And what's frustrating is these studies, you pretty much know what the outcome's going to be. We had one study that wasn't really a study. To me, it was as close to, how do I put this? We paid a company to come in and study what their customer base would be for broadband.
Right. So the people who did the studies are the people that did this. So therefore, they wanted to align their goals with the people they were paying them, not the people who needed the study.
And so when I questioned that, I said, so really, we're paying for a study for this company to figure out who their customers are?
Oh, no.
And the answer was, well, that's the only way they'll do it. And so anyways, and it got far worse. We ended up, I don't know if many people realize this, but this city ended up paying almost $225,000 to get broadband to the last number I was aware of, 18 houses.
Oh, no way.
So do the math. And so, yeah, these studies, and they always couch them in such a way that, you almost feel like you must be a moron to not want to do this study, except it's just, it's kind of my history, or my what I've seen is that these studies, you already know what the outcome's going to be. Sometimes you need the study to get details, and that's fine. But
it's a tool.
Yeah, it becomes a tool, but
it should have always been a tool.
Yeah,
But I do the last admin certainly like to throw studies around like they were popcorn. Let's have a study about a study.
Yeah, I'm really leery of studies.
Yeah. Okay, I want to shift gears on you. I don't want to get you tied up in this. The growth. Let's see, we covered that. Growth and roads. It's like number 3 and 4 on our list. You know, the old people didn't want the new people. Now the new people don't want the newest people coming in, and you are not going to get around that.
Yep.
You know, everybody comes in. How long have you been here? 2 years, and I don't want no more new people. Well, wait a minute. How about the people 4 years ago? They didn't want you.
Yep.
So you got to kind of put that in perspective and say it's growing. It's going to grow. What do you tell those guys? What do you tell the city? I mean, growth is tough to manage.
It is. So, like you said, what happens is, and I grew up here. I grew up in the old village. I'm very familiar with our history. And what happens is, back then, the people on 40, 50, 100 acre lots were upset that you had a lot of 5, 10, 15 acre lots being produced. They didn't think that was a good idea. And then those people didn't like the fact that a lot of 3 acre lots were being made. And then you have the 3 acre people saying, well, geez, I got a development right next to me that's 3 per acre. And they're very upset about that.
Right.
And now, when I door knock, I will find people that will say, hey, yeah, I know this sounds a little weird, but can we stop development? And, I get some of it because here's really, I think what they're getting at is, at least with the people that I talk to now that are in some of these developments, say they moved out here for the rural. In reality, it is a little selfish to say, now I got mine and I want to stop. But really, when I pin them down, it's not that they want to stop. What they're really concerned about is the volume. And to be blunt, I don't hear that too much from the southern development. So Sundance, those areas, Braeburn Trails, they aren't so concerned about the volume of development. Where I hear that is on the north side. And I think the reason for that is because every single house we put in up there adds 2 cars to the river road, to 12.
You're going for number 4, aren't you?
Well, it all ties in together.
There it is, number 4 roads.
Yep.
Okay.
So when we add these developments, and I don't know again why that group thought it made sense to start developing right smack in the north side of the city. To me, what they should have done was build from each edge in. You start with infrastructure, you have it there. So for example, everything down in that southwest side, as it builds up, we can have the developer put in what's needed to support that. Roads, water, the whole shoot match.
Okay. Some infrastructure.
Yep.
Okay.
So the north stuff, the River Hills area, we put in back in, I can't even tell you when it first started, but they put a pump in. We ended up with very quickly blowing by the volume that pump could support. So I think it was roughly right when I got on, it was 2018, give or take. We approved a backup well. That well was put in last fall, I believe, last fall.
Okay.
And it became obvious fairly quickly because of the volume of houses there that we needed another backup, because it was looking like we were going to exceed the capacity of those 2 wells. Well, so then this spring, that well that we put in last fall failed, and it failed spectacularly.
Oh boy.
And suddenly we realized we did not have the capacity to support the amount of houses on that system. So we had to go and grovel to Champlin and say, hey, can we hook back into your water for a while? Luckily, they were able to. And so we had support there. We had enough water, but there was a month there while we were waiting for that pump to get rebuilt where we would have been in trouble. So, and the reason, what I'm getting at is the volume of houses was so, the velocity of the houses was so high that we didn't necessarily pay attention to all the detail, all the side effects that come out of that you don't necessarily know are pitfalls, and water was one of them. So, now we've got the 2 pumps online. There's plenty of capacity there now for the houses that are currently scheduled.
Okay.
We do have that backup well going in the spring. So we should be safe now as far as the volume of the water goes. And we also, I think there's pretty much agreement on the council, all 5 of us, that we're going to go with what is called a wellhead treatment facility, which is going to be, we're pretty hopeful that it'll go in. We haven't gotten the final bids yet, but we did get the final design cost, which of course was well above what the original estimate was.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be about $6 million. And we do have the money to pay for that. And we also received a federal grant that'll cover 4 of it. And I think next, I believe we don't, like I said, we don't have the timeline yet, but I believe it's going to start next summer. And sounds like they typically take a year, maybe more to put in, but at least there's a plan there. There's money to cover it. So for a central system, we should have the water question answered. So that'll take care of the iron, and it'll still be hard water. So, new homes should still get water softeners, but it'll cover the yellow and the brown that people get alarmed about. And it will take the iron out.
Yes, that's all over the pages, isn't it?
Yeah. People are definitely alarmed about that when they look at that, except the people that have had chemistry. So,
and the people who lived in Dayton their whole life.
And the people, yeah. So, I'm on a private well, and I've told people this in the past. When I fill my pool up in the spring, it's crystal clear. The instant I put the chlorine in there, it starts to darken, and an hour later, it's black.
Swimming in mud.
Yep. And it just, what it means is all that iron that was ionized, it turns into a chunk of iron. It particulates out. In the city water, we have to chlorinate by law. So by the time it gets out to the consumer, to the people, to the residents, it's particulated out and they can see it. And, I'm guessing that, when they fill up their tub and it's yellow or worse, let's say somehow the lines got perturbated and you have suddenly this chunk of iron coming off the pipes. It's not pleasant to look at, and it's probably not something you want to, it's not going to hurt you, but it's an ick to look at.
Well, you can cut back on your iron pills.
You could cut back in your iron pills, yeah.
And you jumped right into 4 or 5 on that one with the water issues, by the way. You're just knocking these things right out.
Well, again, I've been doing quite a bit of door knocking. I know what people are concerned about.
Yeah.
And I think we have answers for everything. So,
so you want to move to the comp plan? Oh, I'm sorry, 6, 7. Oh, let's go to land usage. So what I mean by that land sale, it's a farming community. Mm-hmm. Everybody out there wants to sell. It's their exit strategy. Whatever their motive is still theirs. We're 1 in 40. We talked about doing what? 1 in 10, 1 in 12, and maybe even 1 in 2.5. Where are you at on all this? I want to sell my property and live on a beach somewhere and drink pina coladas.
Sure. I know what it kind of depends on whose ideas you're listening to. If you want to have a perfect city and have every development be 3 houses per acre, what you're going to do is you're going to lock in that 1 in 40. So basically nobody can break up ag land. It's way too expensive to break it up. and then it will develop as the pipe gets to it. And I've gone over this many times with staff, with other people, our planning commission. There are some side effects of that are very harsh. You can have, and I mentioned this many times, there's a couple of families I know that had a chunk of farmland, say 60, 70, 80 acres, and they couldn't do anything with it. They couldn't give it to their kids. And in one case, there was 4 kids. 50 acres would have split up nicely. They weren't allowed to do that. He even came to the council. This was before I got on, and basically pleaded with them. He was on the edge of the city. It wouldn't have harmed anything, but our ordinance at the time didn't allow it. So those are frustrating things. And you know what? Sometimes cities have to do frustrating things. Sometimes they have to do things that aren't pleasant.
Right.
And those are hard to stumble through. I mean, we've recently done some of that with some of the residents along West French Lake Road. It was a frustrating thing. Nobody was happy about what happened down there. The problem is things were put into motion down there that resulted in really it was just a harsh reality of what got put into motion. So it was very frustrating to residents, frustrating to us because we didn't have any good answers. We didn't have any answers they liked to hear. So, getting back to your question, I've always said that I want to find a way that we can have chunks of land, and whether this is, permanent or temporary, there are areas in the city that don't have to be sewered in the end. So everybody in the city is probably familiar with a lot of the acreage, a lot of the lots across the river, across 12 from Raintree.
Okay.
Those are all, roughly 3-acre lots. The residents love them. There's a market for them. The problem is clearly builders don't like them because they can't,
maximize profit.
Yeah, they can't maximize, but there's still market for them.
There is bigger houses, bigger numbers, higher clientele.
And I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to that said, the problem with what's going on here is I wanted to buy a new house, but you only sell new houses on 1/3, roughly 1/3 acre lots. Mm-hmm. So of course that's what I bought. And because that's all you offered. And you'll hear, people say, let the market decide. Except what they're skipping over is the fact that the market is really an overlap of what people will buy and what people will sell. And that overlap is the market. If you want, and so the builders kind of drive all that stuff. And it may sound like I'm coming down on the builders, but I'm not. They're just there to make a buck. I get that, and I have no problem with that. But they're gonna try to maximize what they can do.
They're doing business.
And again, this is kind of funny because there were a couple incidents in the past prior to me becoming mayor that this council was actually going to come down on a couple of builders really hard for certain things. And I actually kind of backed them up and said, this stuff is wrong. What you're doing here is wrong. And it had to do with Harstead. But so to me, if we want higher quality developments, to me, that means you may do some small acre lots. I will tell you that the people I talk to that live in these villas that are 1/5 and 1/6 acre lots, love them.
Okay.
They don't want to deal with yard.
Yeah.
They don't want to deal with maintenance. They love them. So I have no problem with them. But I also think that there's also a market out there and a quality of life thing out there that says, there's nothing wrong with half-acre lot. Again, builders will say they'll kind of upchuck at that.
But that's not their model. But like you said, market dictates that. Let the people decide.
Yeah, and so that's kind of where I'm at with some of this stuff. I think there are, if we talk about subdividing land down, the Met Council. Here's the other thing: a lot of people like to slam the Met Council because. I shouldn't say slam, but they like to use the Met Council as an excuse. The Met Council, in my mind, should be abolished. But what we've done, we can't blame the Met Council for. And I say we historically, what we've done.
Okay.
This council has pushed to find ways where we can create larger lots. I have no problem with, like I say, villas. I have no problem with developments going a third per acre, but I would like to see other areas that don't necessarily have to be sewered be larger lots. I see no problem with that. And you know what? If there's no market for it, that's fine. Then when the pipe gets to them,
sure,
they can then put in the third acre lots. But I disagree. I think there is a market for them. And the Met Council even will walk you through, how you do this so that you can sewer in 30, 40, 50 years. Or, if we decide that there's a chunk of land that it really makes no sense to sewer, then we have this special zoning called residential estate zoning. Right now, those are set at 5-acre lots, but I think we could adjust those either way. But I just think we need to think outside this 3 per acre box that we seem stuck in. If we wanted to look like Maple Grove, if that was our end goal, which talking to some people, it seems like that's what their goal is. Well, then why don't we just let Maple Grove
succeed us?
Yeah, just have them.
Extend their border over to ours.
Extend their border over to ours, and
I don't know if they'll let that go in succession there for that. I think they call it secede or something.
Well, seceding, it'd be nice to secede from Hennepin County.
When we started now.
It'd
be nice to secede from Minnesota sometimes.
It's really frustrating to tell people, hey, we knocked the heck out of your taxes, but oh, by the way, Hennepin County's going to whack you. Yeah. Because in the end, they kind of look at the end result. They look at the overall bill. So we'll say, we've got your per house tax down to 2017 levels, but you may not notice that Hennepin County is going to hammer you.
Sure. You guys take less and we'll take more, and they'll pay the same and it won't matter anyway.
It's frustrating.
Yeah, be a commercial lot in Hennepin County and Dayton. Yeah. I'll tell you some stories.
Yeah.
All right, so if we're going to move forward here, give the people your message from the heart, from the Dennis, your mayor, because I hear you got a lot of heart behind it. What do you want to tell these guys out there?
Well, I am Dennis Fisher, and I'm definitely asking for your vote. I have been in this city for 47 years. I have a lot of love for this city. I have seen a lot of activity as far as, what makes up good local government and what makes up bad local government. I even though we have done quite a bit with taxes, we will still, I guess I'm still going to, assuming, I'm elected, I still want to watch those taxes. And, even though we've brought that rate from 54 down to 37%, I still want to see it.
Wow.
That was phenomenal. And we, and we did that. And we still, this last year, we still hired 3 people. We still have to support the new homes. So we still found a way to do it. We had a debt expire that we paid off, and what previous councils would do is just fill it with new spending and jack up taxes to begin with.
Double ding, yep.
Yeah, it was like they were double dipping. So we used that to hire 3 people. We used some of the so-called free COVID money, one-time money, for one-time costs. We ended up with a couple pickups that Public Works Fire Department needed, and Marty got a new snowplow out of the deal. So we still spent money, but yet the tax increase was just under 4%. And we had like 15 or 16% increase in houses. So yeah, we brought that rate down over the last 2 years from 54 down to 37. It's just a historic drop in taxes. So I still want to keep an eye on taxes, obviously, and I think I'd still like to get them down. We're now, I think, more comparable to neighboring cities. Obviously, we want to see this central water problem cleaned up, and like I say, I think we're on a path to do that. Something that I hadn't mentioned with the water before, but when I talked to the southwest residents, they are deathly afraid because of something that happened 3 or 4 years ago, where the then administration was going to put in a water system down there, an untreated water system, and shift all of the Southwest residents onto that system because the city could make $1 a unit more. And at the time, I was the only person saying this is disastrous.
Sometimes it's not about money; it's about principle and moral, isn't it?
Yeah, we had a good thing going. Maple Grove covers us. Maple Grove is going to be able to support. I believe the up to half of our build out down there. And what I'd like to see is, see if maybe they can support even more, because it only makes sense that they could do it cheaper and probably in a more I won't say timely
efficient
fashion,
manner?
but efficient. It just makes sense. They have their populations, far higher than ours.
Oh, for sure.
So back when I got elected as mayor, I made it clear to those people that I was going to, fight that tooth and nail, and we did. We ended up with some members on the council, and we killed it, or at least we pushed it way out. And like I said, I'd like to push it out permanently, but
killed it for now.
Yeah. Let me see. County roads. So we touched on roads a little bit.
We did. Is this what you want in your message?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have been communicating with Kevin Anderson, both privately and as with city staff. And I think they're coming to the realization that there's some things that they do need to deal with. I think he's convinced that they need a different formula for when they define when a county road needs work. So, territorial in 81 it needs work. It needs county care. And Fernbrook needs county input. Regardless of where you're at with some of the road questions on the notorious X business, the south side of Fernbrook, below south of say 113, that doesn't fix that issue. So when you have Rush Creek coming into Fernbrook there, they need to deal with that. And maybe, I think Councilor Solonic mentioned something along the lines of maybe a roundabout will help with that. We can help with that. Those aren't too expensive.
Because a roundabout is a traffic control device.
Yes, it will help with speeds. It'll help with getting it.
Councilman Solonic, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not as good as lights, but it's also significantly cheaper than lights.
Oh, for sure.
And so we still have work to do there. And so, I think there's a lot of stuff we still have ahead of us. I think there's going to be, some development questions that we can answer. And so that's really what I want to leave with everybody is I will keep an eye on taxes. That would be my goal, but we can, I think, make some pretty significant changes with our development process.
I see it from the outside where if you keep changing councils, the previous councils never get no traction on nothing, and you just start this cycle all over again. If you put a green council in there, and they have to fight this because they haven't got the history or the wisdom sometimes, to see back, forward, and future, it's a tough thing.
Yeah. I mean, especially when they come in and they're going to
idealistic,
blow the socks off the spending, and they don't realize what the current finances look like. I mean,
and how would they? I mean, they see the tech and spec, but they're not part of the groove. They're not in that grind of it every day, and you're looking at it. They see it from a quip.
Well, we even had a previous councilman that he had been on the council for 6 years and didn't know that new houses paid that debt. If we lose new houses due to the market or due to the economy dropping, and we end up taking on more debt for other things, we are just going to be in a world of hurt. So, those details are huge. That $16 million worth of debt we have is just sitting there like a hammer over our heads. So
best outcome for the council, my thought is we need to keep the guys current who are there, add one, move forward, and fix things. What do you say?
Well, I certainly would like, for that to be a path. I think we have a history now where we know what we need to do, and and I think we'll be in good shape to get some of it done.
So you're in agreement then with that comment?
Well, I think history shows too that we've paid attention to what people were concerned about. People in the city have complained about taxes forever.
Yeah.
And the excuse was always, well, we need commercial. Well, we showed you don't need commercial. You got twice as many houses as you did 4 or 5 years ago. It was obvious to me that you could bring taxes down. And we did.
So we need to manage the city.
I think, that really is what it boils down to. Yeah.
Okay. Just for you out there listening, this is not an actual episode of HuttCast. This is Mayorcast, or Dennis's personal feelings and views. Anything else you want to add before we pull the pin on this? How do we get a hold of you? Tell people how to get a hold of you other than the hate book page. And
actually, there was a little tidbit that I wanted to get out there. I don't know that I'm not, people that know me know I'm not one to toot my own horn, but just because of the fact that I've paid attention over the years, because of the fact that I'm pretty familiar with the city, we had a contract, a major error, or it could have been an error, in one of these TIF agreements.
That deal, yes.
And, it went through, and our lawyer missed it, our admin at the time missed it, and it was frustrating for me because I had wanted staff to give it to another law firm to look at and say, find a way, figure out if this contract is good or not. And it didn't happen. It was frustrating. So I looked at it. It was $2.3 million, and I found it. So, it was, again, it would have been $2.3 million worth of taxes that the residents would have got hooked with.
And most people wouldn't even know that.
And it would have just quietly occurred, and nobody would have realized. So
integrity is what happens when people aren't watching you.
Yeah.
That's toot your horn a little. Why not?
Well, yeah,
that's okay. You can do that.
Yeah, I suppose during election time, it's probably a good time to do that. But.
Well, it is, because they want, people want to know you, and this is what they're doing. So that's why you're taking the time. That's why we're sitting on the show, and we're just saying, hey, what is Dennis all about? And if you don't listen, then you're part of the problem. You should probably listen and pay attention. All right. Any other tidbits we should know?
No, I don't think so.
How do we get a hold of you?
DennisFisher.org is my website. I've got a lot of material on there. I've got, various stances on things, and plus my numbers on there. If you want to complain about something, or someone give me your opinion on something, I have no problem with a phone call or an email. I will even show up on your doorstep if you want. I had a resident ask me something a couple days ago, and I drove over and talked to them. I have no problem with that.
He wasn't like, want to rake the yard or nothing, need your help, did he?
No.
Can we do that? I got to look like a really lot of leaves next door.
Yeah.
No? Okay.
No, I'm not. The leaves on my yard stay put.
Okay. Should we put a fork in it?
Yeah, I think so.
Best of luck to you in your campaign. Thanks for coming on the show, and I will get this edited up and out on the pages.
All right. Well, thank you for having me over here.
Okay.